Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit of the WoW podcast, Blue Please on CynicalBrit.com. What is this? This thing? There are people here, and I think there are opposing people on the other side, and I think we're supposed to fight. My sources tell me this is called the Battleground, that this one might be new in the Cataclysm. It's called Twin Peaks. It's based out of Twilight Highlands. It's basically Warsong Gulch again, with some slight modifications to terrain and some fairly random respawn locations. I mean, it's not random per se, but there's a number of different graveyards you can spawn at to hopefully prevent camping. Also gets you right back into the fight fairly quickly. I have to attest this, I don't think I've PvP'd in any serious capacity since Vanilla. Back in Vanilla, we had a Battlegrounds fixed team. We weren't all that serious about it, but I got up to Bloodguard rank before they disabled that. It's not particularly high rank, but you did have to actually put some effort in to get there, otherwise you'd never reach it. Whatever the case, PvP never really held all that much interest for me, and I suppose I can explain why while we have a look at this video. This is just to give you a look at how Twin Peaks is set out and what you can expect going in here. And, of course, it also gives people the opportunity to spurge out over the fact that I'm not very good at PvP. But, hey, there you go. People will be people. It doesn't really matter. Now, I suppose I can give you a bit of insight into what I'm actually using here. Not that I would take this as any degree of advice. I've got the PvP set that's item level 352 that comes with the pre-made. There's a full set of the basic blue gladiators gear. And I've also got a bunch of enchants that are suitable for PvP, so we've got some resilience gems, quite a lot of stamina gems put in there as well, a spell reflect meta and things like that. As regards to my spec, you can probably see I am spec'd Frost. There's no real need to explain the Frost spec because it's fairly obvious what you need to take. I did take Reactive Barrier, which is quite nice. It wants to go below 50% HP if your Ice Barrier is available automatically cast. I also got Shattering Barrier, which means that when it goes off, it will do a Frost Nova around, which is also very, very cool indeed. Took a little bit of splash in Arcane for the purposes of getting improved Blink, because that's a really good escape mechanism, and also, of course, improved Counterspell, and a little bit of anti-spell pushback in the form of Burning Soul, which is absolutely essential. Now, as you can see in this area, it is very much like Warsong Gulch, very, very similar indeed. Those rivers in the middle do provide a little bit of a barrier and a very nice choke point. You can either swim through the river, which obviously gives you reduced visibility, line of sight issues, and slows you the hell down, or you can attempt to go over the bridge, which can be used to provide a choke point and an ambush area. You've also got a large selection of rocks around that can be used to line of sight your opponents as well as hide behind. I mean, they are very large indeed. We're not just talking about a little pillar that you can maybe see someone around the side of. These things are bloody huge. You know, you could fit a couple of Taurens behind those things. You've also got these big tree trunks that serve the same purpose. I do like that design, actually. It does give the open field a much more dynamic feel to, say, Warsong Gulch. I mean, a lot of battles in Warsong Gulch, when you have them in the middle anyway, tend, honestly, to result in a bunch of Zerg meeting in the middle and just decking each other. And then you've got the fight around the individual strongholds where you find the flags. You've still got that. You've still got an awful lot of that, in fact. But it's just a little bit nicer to have more options in the middle of the field there, just to make it a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more entertaining. In that said, honestly, there's a reason I don't PvP all that much. It's because I don't find it all that interesting. There's a couple of formats where I could see myself doing it in an entertaining manner. This is one of the great changes about Cataclysm, the idea of rated Battleground. So, you see it right here, honestly, that most of these public battlegrounds that you just sign up for tend to be massive great Zerg fests. They're completely disorganized, and overall they're pretty much a waste of time. You get your farm, you maybe get some kills here and there, and people may act sane, they may not. You never really know, but whatever the case, it's just not compelling. I prefer an organized environment, like, say, a raid, whereby we've got everyone working towards a particular goal, and in this case, that's not actually what's happening. You've got a mess. I mean, it's like herding cats. If you have any attempt to lead people, generally speaking, it results in people complaining at you. Like, oh, but we don't want to do that. I think one of the worst experiences I've had, actually, in PvP when I very rarely do it is actually in Arathi Basin, which I still think is one of the best, if not the best, battleground they ever came up with. In an organized team environment, Arathi Basin's actually really interesting because you've got a lot of tactical decisions you have to make, and if you've got everyone on vent and everyone is sorted out and ready to fight and is willing to listen to the leader and all that good stuff, then it's really entertaining. However, if you do it in a pubby environment, well, yeah, the result is not exactly what I'd call pretty. It tends to involve people just zerging in the vague direction of what they feel like at the time, and whoever wins, well, usually it's the person who is outnumbered that ends up losing, simply because you don't even end up getting a full battleground half the time, depending on which server and battle group you're in. We even have this problem in the beta, actually. We had Alliance running away, which is not uncommon, you know. Alliance run away quite a lot, but still, it's a little bit annoying when you want a nice balanced fight. I think this, out of the 4 or 5 that I ended up doing, was the only good one. You might also notice that I'm still trying to get used to a bunch of new key bindings. Like, 6 used to be a useful spell on my fire spec. Oh, now it's actually Ice Block. Also trying to get used to some control and shift modifiers for various spells. Considering the amount of spells you have at your disposal for PvP, it's more than I tend to use in PvE, so I need to try and get them all into keybinding so that it's more efficient to do so. And in PvE, you know, I'll happily admit there's a couple of spells that I do click because there's no need to actually hotkey them. Stuff like trinkets and things like that, activatable abilities on a 3-minute cooldown. It's not difficult to do that. I can still continue casting and moving with my left hand and then click them. Or I could put them on hotkeys. It doesn't make a massive amount of difference. It's only a pain in the ass if you're in a fight whereby you have to rapidly change targets all the time. If you're in a single target DPS encounter, then whether or not you click your trinket abilities or whether or not you press the hotkey is of absolutely no difference whatsoever. Chances are, unless you're incredibly slow with your mouse, it's going to be just as quick to click. That said, of course, you wouldn't want to do that with your main abilities, because that would just be silly. Bloody Paladins. I've always despised Paladins, and that's why. This has happened to me all the way since vanilla. It's horrendous. Oh, I got invincibility shield, aren't I special? So, good. Anyway, back to the point at hand. I suppose, like I said, rated Battlegrounds seems like something I'd probably get into. I can see that working for me. I would probably only do Arathi Basin, really. Maybe this one, and maybe a little bit of Warsong Gulch. Arathi Basin is definitely my preference. I'm actually one of those weird guys as well that like Strand of the Ancients, and a lot of people don't like that because it's a silly vehicle fight, and I don't really blame them for that, but for me, Strand of the Ancients is just a little bit tactical. It's about the placement of your various forces, whether it be on the attack and the defense, and actually you can feint against your opponents, and you can make them go in one direction, and actually what you're doing is going the other, so I like the fact that there was a strategic element behind it as opposed to just the twitch skill of the whole affair. I've got to say, I do respect a lot of PvPers for the actual twitch skill involved in it. You do have to cast very quickly. It's a different set of skills involved in PvP as opposed to PvE, as to which is more skillful. I think that's just a matter for debate, really, isn't it? I don't think you can ever really judge it one way or the other. There's too many variables to actually consider. It's such a subjective thing. When it comes down to arenas, I've always had an interest in arenas, but I don't like the way WoW deals with PvP. I just don't. I have no desire to do that. When it comes to small form team combat, games like Heroes of New Earth, games like Dota, League of Legends, and Bloodline Champions, particularly more so than anything else, do it incredibly well. Bloodline Champions, particularly, is an absolutely exceptional piece of work when it comes to small form PvP. It's very well balanced, it's entirely skill-based, you have to aim everything. There's no RNG of any description, and the balance is very, very, very good indeed. It's a lot of fun. If you do get the chance to play it, pick up the beta for it. There is a video that you can watch if you so desire. It's on my channel. It's called I Suck at Bloodline Champions. Should give you a brief overview of what I'm talking about there. But regardless, even though I dislike WoW's mechanics in that regard, I can still see why people do Arena. It's fast, it's very adrenaline pumped, it is very focused on small form team play and skill, and of course there are no second chances in that. Once you die, you lose. So There is a definite degree of thrill involved in that. It is a very high-stakes kind of game mode. That said, I just don't feel that WoW is best suited to that kind of play. I don't think the combat system's responsive enough. I think, if anything, there's probably too many abilities and too much nonsense involved in it. You're talking about games that have only, say, 4 abilities, like Dota, for instance. Now, you've only got 4 abilities in that, and yet no one ever claims that Dota requires no skill, and if they do, then they're a bunch of idiots. It's not to say that some people don't get a kick out of the fact that they have to juggle so many abilities and variables, and yeah, much show respect for that, really. It does take an awful lot of effort and skill. It's just not my thing. Rated Battlegrounds, on the other hand, yeah, I can get behind that. This kind of thing is just a bit zergy. I mean, look at this. we're just all swarming around this guy with a bloody ice block right there. It's like, hey, we're going to get the kill, we're going to get the kill, let's just jump on it. And it's all over the place, isn't it? We can lose our flag, as we did right there, and we don't care because half the team's the other side of the map ganking a mage. And I'm involved in it. It is like herding cats. But hey, there you go. What else is there really to say about the design of this place? I mean, aesthetically, it's very, very good indeed. And I do like the fact that it does have these deep rivers that are acting very effectively as choke points. If you're wondering about the design of the actual fortress, well, you did see a little bit of it earlier. And I think we do go back in there at one point. I might actually just cut to that just so you can see it, because, you know, this isn't really going anywhere. This is not to show off my PvP abilities or lack thereof. No doubt some people will complain, but that is the nature of the internet, so it really doesn't make all that much of a difference. Okay, let's skip through and I'll show you the inside of one of the fortress areas so that you can maybe get a feel for what you're supposed to be doing when you're inside there and the little nooks and crannies that might be of use to you. This is the Wildhammer Fortress, and the other side, I might add, the Horde building is much cooler. Both of these look really great, but the Horde building, some giant freaking windmill made out of dragon wings. So freaking awesome. It's the Dragon Maw Forge. Oh, yeah. Now, you'll notice this is quite similar to Warsong Gulch right there. You've got the little bit above the actual flag cat room, but you don't have a roof this time, so there's going to be no nonsense there. I used to love sitting on the roof of Warsong Gulch and just sniping down with my fire spec and kicking the crap out of everyone. It was awesome. The flag is in a slightly different area. It's actually, I believe, on the left-hand side when you go in from this, as opposed to at the back of the room. Aside from that, you've got 2 lower entrances that will lead you past the location of raised graveyards, so do be careful about that if you're bringing the flag along. And that's really about it, and they're pretty much identical on both sides for obvious balance reasons. Although, no doubt, some people will say it favours the Horde, and then the other half will say it favours the Alliance. And needless to say, nothing actually ever gets done in that situation. Kill the Moonkin! Let me hear the hooting lamentations of its family. Sorry, I've got a thing against Moonkins. I think I was bullied by one as a child. Don't like Draenei much either. Bloody space goats. Always good to lay into those. You might notice that we've all got an absurd amount of health. It does take an awful lot longer to kill things at this point. Now, that's a change that is going to be very, very interesting to look at when it comes to people that actually like PvP. So, I suppose, if I had a comment question of the day, I would say, if you are a PvPer, or indeed if you just do it very casually, what are your opinions on making fights longer? Do you think that it takes an aspect of the skill and thrill out of it, or do you in fact think that because it takes longer, you've got more variables to worry about and that it does make it more interesting? I personally don't really have an opinion on it, although what I did do earlier on is wail on this Warlock and barely did any damage to it whatsoever. In the gear I'm wearing right now, I've got about 33% damage reduction through pure resilience. I have quite a lot of it on this gear, and I've got a couple of enchants, not too many, because most of the resilience enchants aren't really optimal in Cataclysm as far as I can tell. There's much better enchants in that slot that would actually benefit you. Let's bear in mind, you still got to do damage every now and again. Hell, I used to do PvP in my tier 2.5 gear back in the day. I had a full set of tier 2, which was fun for doing that in. I remember the set bonus for Netherwind. Oh, yes, that's it. Get back here! This is what PvP is, folks. Chasing a warlock halfway across the map and wailing on it for about 5 minutes. Does remind me of a League of Legends game I was playing earlier, actually, where we were doing the same thing to a Cho'Gath that had about 4,500 HP. Like, we're still hitting him. Why isn't he dying? Oh, God, get Mandrids, you noobs. Oh, well, whatever. Like I say, it's a very nicely designed little battleground. I don't really understand why they'd keep adding battlegrounds that are basically the same. I can understand if it's a new mode, but this isn't a new mode. This is Warsong Gulch. Absolutely, 110% Warsong Gulch style, capture the flag, with no variables or gimmicks of any description. So, why? Why are we doing this? I would say, perhaps, that some people are going to have a different opinion here. I'm the kind of person that thinks that the Dota map is perfect, and that nothing needs to be changed about it, and I could play Dota on that map until the end of time. I have no desire at all to play another map. When I read people on, say, the Hon forums or the LoL forums asking for new maps, I get confused, because I don't see the point. Why fix what isn't broken? The Dota map is perfect. There is nothing wrong with it. I could play Dota on that map until the cows come home, or indeed the cows rain from the sky in some kind of bovine apocalypse. When it comes to Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin, I could just do that as well. I don't find myself getting bored of either of them. I mean, this is a change of scenery, don't get me wrong, but I just don't necessarily see the point unless they're going to add something that is genuinely different. Twin Peaks isn't. It's very, very nice for what it is. Oh, look, the Alliance have run off. There you go. That's a shocker. It is very nice looking for what it is. The texture work is obviously there. They've put in a lot of effort towards the design. I really like what they've done with the bit in the middle here, with all of these line-of-sight areas, as well as the large bushes that you can hide in. So it is a little bit more tactical in the center, as opposed to what Warsong Gulch was. But at the end of the day, it is just another battleground, and it doesn't really bring anything new to the game. That said, no doubt you will enjoy it, because as a battleground in and of itself, it is good. I don't see any obvious issues here. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of issues with camping the graveyards, for instance. Most of them are raised. You can see them around the place. There are a couple of them, and there wasn't an awful lot of camping, honestly. We did at one point just gather around and just start dropping things on the top of there, but it's fairly easy to line of sight us if you do that. See that? You have a look at that. Look at how amazing that is. I'm going to get another shot of that. I'm sorry. Freaking Dragonmore windmill over there. Super slow-mo. The most badass windmill of all time, ladies and gentlemen. It's good stuff. There you go, folks. That's been a look at the Twin Peaks. I will do the Battle of Gilneas. I might do it tomorrow. We will see. I'll probably stay away from the comments this evening. I can just imagine the rage of the PvPers rising, bubbling over, spewing forth. Oh well, I console myself with the fact that a view is a view, and then drink myself under the table. I'll see you next time.